Cold air is returning to the United Kingdom. After days of mild, damp conditions across much of the country, a significant pattern shift is now underway. This isn't sensationalism. The models are showing consistency. And whilst nothing is certain at this range, the signs are promising for those who've been waiting for proper winter weather. Right now, conditions across the country couldn't be more different. The Scottish Highlands saw temperatures drop to -8 this morning, bitterly cold with a sharp wind. That is the Arctic air mass we're going to be discussing. Meanwhile, across the southwest from Cornwall through Devon and into Somerset, it's been mild and damp. Temperatures running well above the seasonal average. Somerset has flood warnings in effect this morning. Heavy rain overnight. Wales has been wet. Near record rainfall in places this week. That changes dramatically starting Sunday when the cold air arrives. The Midlands have been quiet. Birmingham and surrounding areas hovering around 7 degrees, grey skies, rather dull for winter weather enthusiasts. That extended mild spell ends next week. And then there's East Anglia. Many of you have been waiting for some proper winter weather. Rather boring conditions in recent weeks. This pattern shift has potential. I am not going to promise anything until we see how these systems develop, but it's worth watching. Let me explain what's happening meteorologically. We have an area of high pressure building up to the northeast. Areas of low pressure are trying to push in from off the Atlantic. The trigger is an area of low pressure beginning to slide southwards on the 20th and 21st of January, with heights building up towards Scandinavia. This is unusual. We're seeing areas of low pressure on a northwest to southeast line. That's not the typical pattern. As that low pressure slides southwards, we've got higher pressure building between Greenland and Scandinavia. The wind backs into an easterly direction for Scotland initially and eventually brings easterly winds for all parts of England. Before we get to the cold, there is wet and windy weather to contend with. Thursday into Friday, we're re-looking at very wet conditions moving through the south and southwest of the UK. This could bring some quite stormy conditions, particularly for the south and southwest. The Met Office has a wind warning in force for parts of West Wales as well as southwestern England. Gusts up to 65 miles per hour are possible. Some areas are still recovering from Storm Eowyn. We are expecting a few impacts from that. Eastern areas will see very little in the way of rain. Actually, some sunny spells through the afternoon. Certainly a brighter day than yesterday. Will be a warmer day as well. Still pretty breezy though across eastern areas. A southeasterly wind, so a relatively mild direction. Overnight, this band of rain will push ever further northwards, pushing into parts of southwestern Scotland as well as Northern Ireland, seeing some outbreaks of heavy rain. There will be a clearer spell for a time for more central areas overnight. Still fairly brisk winds though, and a lot of cloud around. So a very limited frost once again, a little bit cooler than last night, but relatively frost-free for most of us. Wednesday, the focus returns to rain. Outbreaks of rain will continue to move up from the south through the day. There will be some drier slots in between, but most of us can expect some wet weather through the day on Wednesday. It's particularly across eastern Scotland where we'll start to see rainfall totals building up. Could see some snow as well above 300 or 400 metres by Wednesday afternoon. The Met Office has a rain warning in force for these areas. Southeasterly winds bring the added risk of large waves, and it's a fairly unusual direction for the rainfall to come in. By the end of Friday, we could see as much as 120 millimetres of rain building up over the highest ground. And with the added risk of snow, we're re-expecting some disruption from the heavy rain, as well as possibly some quite large waves. Now, to the cold air. By Sunday, all areas are looking quite cold. Expect wintry showers in from the east. Is this the beast from the east? No, it's not quite that level, but it is significant enough to warrant attention. An area of low pressure is sliding through the south of the UK with that cold air embedded within it. We could see a bit of snow actually on the northern edge. You'd expect plenty of wintry showers packing into eastern and southeastern regions, particularly in the north as well, through northern Scotland. Could be seeing some quite heavy wintry showers. The cold air becomes trapped within for all areas. We get an area of low pressure which, due to the track of the jet stream, is sliding southwards. The jet stream is down into Spain. That carries the low pressure further southwards. It begins to weaken as it gets pushed southwards, and it becomes like a channel low and brings some significant snow to the south. Then we wrap the cold air back in. It does go briefly less cold for a day or so, and then higher pressure rebuilds up to the northwest of the UK. The wind turns into a proper northeasterly direction, turning very cold. We re-dragging in the air from Western Europe by around the 27th or 28th of January. Looking at the GFS model and bearing in mind this is a long way off, we re-seeing blocked, cold, wintry conditions, very snowy. This would be snow just about anywhere. Areas of low pressure pushing up from the south would be bringing in constant wintry hazards. The ECMWF model, which has been rather reluctant to show cold in recent runs, is now coming into line. Low pressure moving in from the west, sliding southwards, lots further south with the ECMWF, which actually allows the cold air to arrive earlier. We've got that blocking area of high pressure up to the north. The wind is backing into the southeast. Eventually, another area of low pressure slides southwards. That is the trigger. As that slides southwards, the winds turn into an easterly direction. High pressure remains up to the northeast. Then we see a brief ridge before more low pressure systems begin to move in, sliding southwards and bringing in continued very cold and snowy events by the end of the month. That area of low pressure has really cold air moving in from the east. Bitterly cold air. If this comes off, it's quite an epic setup. Looking at the precipitation type forecasts, we are seeing wintry risks for northern England and central southern Scotland through around the 23rd of January. There's that area of low pressure on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, pushing to the south. The wind drags into an easterly direction, and we see rain, sleet, and snow showers with that colder air filtering in from the east. Plenty of wintry showers for central southern areas. There are hints of little features that could be quite interesting. Later on, we get areas of low pressure and little weather fronts moving in from the south and southwest. They could bring associated wintry hazards. There's potential for a snow event for the south, even areas south of the M4. Even London could see some. That would be unusual, though it does happen sometimes. Then we see more wintry risks throughout. This will likely be a lot more widespread than the current forecasts suggest. With those easterly winds, you can see little kinks in the isobars, little lows in the flow. They could also help to form showers. So plenty to go on with that one. If we have a look at the GFS ensembles, they are definitely trending much colder. We around to above average at the moment, but dropping into the latter half of January. Are we setting up a bitterly cold end to January? Possibly, maybe even extending to the start of February. Those average temperatures below -5 Celsius are pretty uncommon these days. It's not normal to see this, and there is quite a few runs getting down to very cold levels, -10 Celsius. This is why I've been saying not to rule any scenario out. Nothing can be ruled out. Of course, mild can be ruled out, but at this stage, it looks very, very unlikely. With colder air, wintry hazards are obviously there. It looks quite likely that we could see plenty of showers in the east and southeast, maybe into the northeast of England and Aberdeenshire as well. With an easterly wind and cold enough air, it will all be snow. We could see snow events from the south into the southwest. Of course, probably likely to be rain in the southwest initially, but if you're in the Midlands, central southern England, likely to be snow if we do see any of those low pressure systems moving further northwards. Now, many of you remember the beast from the east in 2018. That was February through to March. We had Siberian air, temperatures down to -14 Celsius in places, significant snow across much of the country. This pattern isn't quite at that level, but it's the same general setup. High pressure to the north and east, dragging in continental air. Some of you will also remember the winter of 2010. December specifically. Coldest December in over 100 years. That was a similar blocking pattern. High pressure over Scandinavia, easterly winds bringing bitter cold and snow. The key difference here is we later in the season, we approaching the end of January, moving into February. The sun is getting stronger. That moderates things somewhat. But make no mistake, if this pattern locks in, we are looking at a significant cold spell. For those in Scotland, you are already dealing with the worst of it. Temperatures have been well below freezing. You know how to handle this. Grit supplies topped up, snow shovels at the ready. This is familiar territory for you. For those in the southeast, this sort of cold is unusual for you. Most people down there don to keep snow shovels to hand, and that's fair enough. If you can, work from home on the days when snow is forecast. The roads won't be gritted as thoroughly as they would be up north. It's not a criticism, it's just how it is. They don't get this weather often enough to justify the infrastructure. Wales, you've been dealing with wet conditions, temperature swings. One day 12 degrees, next day 3, then back up again. People have been poorly for weeks. Sinus trouble, headaches. That back and forth pattern ends next week when sustained cold moves in. At least it'll be consistent. East Anglia, I know many of you have been waiting for snow. You've gone several winters without a decent covering in some areas. This pattern has potential. Easterly winds favour your region, but I'm not going to promise anything until we see how these systems develop. Snow forecasting is notoriously difficult. The difference between rain, sleet and snow can be a degree or two. For the Midlands, UV had a particularly quiet winter so far. Temperatures hovering around 6 or 7 degrees, grey skies, not much to write home about. That changes next week. Whether you get snow depends on the exact track of these low pressure systems. Too far south, you miss it. Too far north, you get the lot. Practical advice for everyone. Check on elderly relatives and neighbors. Make sure they've got heating, food, medication. These cold snaps can be dangerous for vulnerable people. If you've got pipes that might freeze, leave the heating on low overnight. It's cheaper than calling a plumber. If you are driving, keep a blanket, torch, and some water in the car. If you get stuck, don't panic. Stay with the vehicle. If you're trying to get unstuck from snow, cardboard, or an old carpet under the tires, increases traction. Works a treat. Many of you probably already know this old trick. Stock up on essentials if you can. Not panic buying, just sensible preparation. Bread, milk, tinned goods. If the snow does arrive and you can to get out for a day or two, you are sorted. For those with gardens, protect vulnerable plants if you've got any. Fleece or hessian wrap for tender specimens. Move pots closer to the house. The cold can damage roots. Now, confidence levels. This is important. The interest period is from around the 25th onwards to at least the end of the month. At this range, 7 to 10 days out, confidence is moderate. The models are showing consistency, which is encouraging. But they can and do change. Snow cannot be reliably forecast until around 3 days out at the maximum, probably about 2 days to be on the safe side. Then it's now casting for showers. So any specific snow totals you see on charts for next week, take them with a pinch of salt. They unreliable at this time frame. What we can say with reasonable confidence is that a cold spell is likely. Easterly winds, temperatures well below average, wintry showers, particularly in the east, potential for more organized snow events from low pressure systems tracking through. The exact details, where gets the most snow, how much, when exactly, those will become clearer over the coming days. I'll keep you updated with everything as the forecast evolves. One thing I want to address, there's been a lot of model disagreement over the last few days. Some runs showing cold, others showing mild Atlantic air winning out. That's normal at this range. The atmosphere is chaotic. Small changes in initial conditions lead to big differences in outcomes. What we're seeing now is convergence. The GFS, ECMWF, UKMO models are all trending towards the same solution. That increases confidence. It doesn't guarantee it, but it is a positive sign. The GEM model has been showing mild. I never trust the GEM. It's often an outlier. The ECMWF has been the Grinch model for cold weather enthusiasts, but even that is now coming round. When the ECMWF shows cold, you pay attention. Looking at the synoptic setup, it S textbook for a cold spell. High pressure to the north and east, low pressure to the south. That gradient drives easterly winds. The longer it persists, the colder it gets. Continental air is dry. It takes time to cool the UK down, but once it does, it is stubborn. The risk with this pattern is channel lows. Low pressure systems sliding along the English Channel, they can bring significant snow to southern counties. The infamous snow events in London and the southeast often come from this setup. March 1991, the wrong type of snow event. December 2010, both channel lows. If we get one of those tracking through, the Midlands, southern England could see substantial snow. But again, it S-track dependent. 100 miles makes the difference between rain and snow, between a dusting and 10 centimetres. Northern England, you are in an interesting position. Easterly winds often favour the northeast. Newcastle, Sunderland, the coast. You can get battered by snow showers off the North Sea. Inland areas, the Pennines can see heavy snow as well, but it depends on the wind direction. If it's more northeasterly, you are in the firing line. If it's more southeasterly, you miss out. Scotland, as I said, you are already cold. The Highlands have been seeing snow. That continues. Central Belt, you will see more of it as the week goes on. The Western Isles, Orkney, Shetland, you are exposed. Wintry showers straight off the Atlantic, then later off the North Sea. It's going to be unpleasant. Northern Ireland, you are in a tricky spot. Easterly winds aren't your usual pattern. You are more accustomed to Atlantic systems. But you will feel the cold. Whether you get much snow depends on how far west the cold air penetrates and whether any lows track over or near you. The Republic of Ireland, for those watching from there, particularly the east coast, you are looking at similar conditions to eastern England. Easterly winds favour your region. Dublin, Drogheda, Dundalk, you could see wintry showers. Western counties, probably less so. Now, looking beyond this event into February, there's been talk of a sudden stratospheric warming event. The polar vortex splitting, if that happens, it can lead to prolonged cold into mid to late February, but that is even more speculative than the current forecast. One thing at a time. What I will say is that if this cold spell establishes itself, it could persist. Blocking patterns can be stubborn. The high pressure sits there, the cold air stays locked in, and we get day after day of below freezing temperatures and wintry showers. That S when it becomes more impactful. Not the one-off snow event, but the sustained cold. For businesses, particularly those in transport, logistics, retail, start thinking about contingency plans. If the roads are bad, deliveries get delayed. Staff can get in. It's worth having a plan. Schools, you know the drill. If it snows heavily, closures are likely. Parents, make arrangements now for childcare if that happens. Don't leave it until the last minute. For the NHS, A&E departments see an uptick in cold weather, slips and falls on ice, respiratory issues from the cold air, cardiovascular problems. If you're vulnerable, take extra care. Agriculture, farmers, you know this already, but livestock need extra attention in cold weather. Ensure water supplies don't freeze. Extra feed for energy. Shelter from the wind. One more thing. Aurora activity has been high. There have been strong solar storms. Some have asked whether this affects the weather. The short answer is we don't fully understand the connection. There is some evidence that solar activity can influence atmospheric circulation, but it's not a direct cause and effect. The current forecast is based on established meteorological principles. The solar activity is interesting, but I wouldn't base any forecast decisions on it. Right, to summarize, wet and windy Thursday and Friday for southern and western areas, rain warnings for eastern Scotland. Then from Sunday onwards, cold air arrives, easterly winds, wintry showers, particularly in the east. Potential for more organised snow events, particularly for southern and central areas from low-pressure systems tracking through. The interest period is the 25th onwards. Confidence is moderate. Models are converging. It's not guaranteed, but it is looking increasingly likely. I'll keep you updated as the forecast evolves. For those of you in the southeast who don't see this often, don't panic, but do prepare. For those in Scotland who are already dealing with it, stay safe. For everyone else, keep an eye on the forecast, especially from 3 days out when we can be more specific about snow totals. This is a significant pattern shift. It's not apocalyptic, but it's notable. Treat it with the respect it deserves. And if you are a winter weather enthusiast, you might finally get what you've been waiting for. Thank you for watching. If you found this informative, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your continued support. Stay safe, and I'll